Hey, this is Jesse of KiwiboxDotCom. I'm here at the world-famous Highline Ballroom in New York City. I'm about to interview Salvador Santana, son of the legendary Carlos Santana. He's an amazing singer, musician, and songwriter who, while still in high school, co-wrote the Grammy-winning El Farol. I'm going to give you a one-on-one interview, show you footage of his performance, and you can find it all here on KiwiboxDotCom.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the Salvador Santana
Salvador Santana, how's it going?
Good, very good.
So, your album just came out. When did you decide to pursue music as a career?
I believe I decided to pursue music as my career when I left college a few years ago, and I had the opportunity to form a band and basically open up with my father over in Europe. And our first gig actually was at Stravinsky Hall for the Montreux Jazz Festival. So it was a pretty big icebreaker, but very memorable for me. But you know, I like to use the cliche that I don't think I chose music. I think music chose me. You know, so in some way it was, I guess, somewhat inevitable. You know.
Cool. So your style is very eclectic. What were your main influences for the album and just in general?
There were a lot of influences for this album titled SSB that just came out February 26th. You know, a whole variety of influences I've had musically, and just different performers that are still around and that have passed on. A lot of stuff you hear is basically what's popular on in radio and in mainstream. A lot of it is some forgotten music, and some of it is just some a little bit of my favorite genres of music that are out there now. You know, jazz, hip hop, rock, salsa, R&B, reggae, reggaeton, all that good stuff. You know, it's basically a great record. It's a party from beginning to end.
So your father is the legendary Carlos Santana. What influence did he have on you pursuing music and then the music that you ended up creating?
My father had a lot of influence on my musical path. Obviously, both my folks have encouraged me to just be myself, and whatever I decide to do, be the best that I can at it. Again, music was inevitable. My folks had always believed that I would become a musician, whether it was to do it as a career, you know, or you know, maybe just as a hobby. It would always be present in my life. Again, I don't feel like I chose music. I think it chose me, you know. So, but I'm very grateful for not just the music opportunity that my parents gave me, just, you know, everything else that they gave me. You know, a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom, and I hold my family very close, you know.
So when you told Carlos, I'm going to follow in your footsteps, were they excited? Did he give you any advice about how to deal with the pressure and everything?
You know, it wasn't really quite, it didn't really go about that way. It wasn't right, like I'm necessarily following in his footsteps. I feel like I'm just kind of continuing a legacy, you know. My dad doesn't, you know, with all the credit and all the respect that he's done, he hasn't really necessarily started the legacy. It goes back even further. A lot of people don't know this, but my father actually got his musical start playing in his dad's band. My grandfather, in a mariachi band, my dad played violin and guitar. And so a lot of people don't really know that, but you know, just like maybe I kind of got my start through my father, he got his start through his dad. And I'm sure Don Jose, my grandfather, you know, was influenced by you know, people within the family that keeps going on and on. Plus, my mom, her dad, my other grandfather, he was a blues musician, Mr. Saunders King, and you know, throughout the 30s and the 40s and 50s even, he had the opportunity to play with like Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, Billie Holiday, Count Basie. I mean, the names go on. So again, I wouldn't say it's following in the footsteps. It's just more or less he's passing the baton off to me, and I'm just going to go ahead and do my thing, you know.
So you co-wrote and performed on El Farol of Supernatural with your father, which actually won a Grammy. What was that experience like? I can imagine it's amazing.
You know, it definitely was a pretty amazing experience. I didn't have the opportunity to really celebrate it at that point because at the time I wasn't, the credits weren't acknowledged on that particular on that particular version. So when they came out with the remastered or the rendition of Supernatural, I was put on the liner notes. But at the time when it did win, it didn't really hit me as hard, to be honest. I enjoyed it later on as I got a little older. I think maybe just because I was in high school and I was really distracted then, but I really love the song even to this day. And the whole reason why we wrote it is because my dad had this melody, and he came to me when I was in high school and he said, hey, I want you to help me figure out the chords to this song. So he said, no problem. So I was helping him out. He's continuing the melody, then he has to put the guitar down because the phone's ringing. He goes and answers the phone. I'm still figuring out the chords, and I'm kind of liking it, and I'm figuring it out, and all of a sudden he says, hey, Sal, well, you have to stop what you're doing. We got to go. Well, what's going on? He says, my dad just died. My grandfather just passed away. Your grandfather just passed away. So I was like, oh, okay. So we ended up going over there and dealing with it. Then came back, finished writing the song, and performed it a couple days later at his funeral. And yeah, so it was really cool. That's how it started. And my dad had personal feelings about the song, but eventually he gave in, put it on the record, and again, it